Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Life of Pi by Yann Martel. Life of Pi is a Canadian philosophical novel and it was published in 2001. And in this, we find a narrator who is the protagonist and his name is Piby Molitor Pai Patel. He is an Indian boy from Pondicherry. And in this story, he travels with his family. The ship meets with a shipwreck and he survives for 227 days stranded on a lifeboat in the Pacific Ocean. And he is not alone, he is with the Bengal tiger, and the name of the Bengal tiger is Richard Parker, and an orangutan. The name of the orangutan is orange juice, and there are also several other zoo animals. And the book begins with a note from the author, which is an integral part of the novel. In part 1, we find it is happening in 1960s and the narrator, that is the protagonist, Piby Molitor Pai Patel, he is living with his family. His father is a manager in a zoo in Pondicherry. His classmates always will tease him because they will call him as Pissing, and that is they will transform his first name, and therefore he started assuming his first name as Pi, and that is how he starts his secondary school. And pi is also a name which pays tribute to the transcendental number, which is actually the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. And pi here describes the unusual situations which involves proper names. He talks about two visitors to the zoo. One is a devout Muslim and the other is a committed atheist. But they have the same names. And he also talks about a 450-pound Bengal tiger at the zoo. And the name of the Bengal tiger is Richard Parker. And how the Bengal tiger got its name is it's because of the mistake made by the clerk. He made a clerical error where he switched the tiger's name with the name of his human captor. That is, the name of the person who captured the tiger is Richard Parker. But instead of typing his name there, he had typed it in the name of the tiger. Therefore, the Bengal tiger's name is Richard Parker. And one day, Pi and his older brother Ravi, they are given lessons about the dangers of the animals which are kept on the zoo. And this starts with the goat being fed to another tiger, followed by a family tour of the zoo. And that time, the father explains about the aggressive biological features of each animal. So he has a basic understanding of all the animals. And Pi is raised as a Hindu and he is a pure vegetarian. And at the age of 14, he learns about Christianity and Islam, and he decides to become an adherent of all the three religions, that is Hinduism, Christianity and Islam. But it is not liked by his parents and also his religious mentors. And his religious mentors, out of frustration, say just wants to love God. And then he tries to understand God through the lens of each religion, that is through Hinduism, through Christianity and also through Islamism, and comes to recognize the benefits in each. A few years later, in February 1976, it was the time when the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi declares the emergency. At that time, Pi's father decides to sell the zoo and immigrate with his wife and sons to Canada. In part 2, we find it is happening in 1977 in July. Now, Pi's family is abroad in the Simpson, which is a Japanese freighter, and they are transporting all the animals from the zoo to North America. And the freighter leaves the port from Manila, but on the way the ship encounters a storm and it sinks. But somehow Pi manages to escape in a small lifeboat, and only later he finds out that he is not alone in the boat. Along with him is a spotted hyena, an injured Grant's zebra, and an orangutan named Orange Juice. And much to the boy's distress, the hyena kills the zebra and later on it also kills Orange Juice. Finally, he finds a tiger has been hiding under the boat's tarpaulin, and that is none other than the Bengal tiger Richard Parker. And thus, Richard Parker has also boarded the lifeboat with ambivalent assistance from Pi himself, sometimes before the hyena attack. That is, the hyena comes to attack even Pi. But when the hyena is trying to attack Pi, the tiger emerges from its hideaway and it kills and eats the hyena and saves Pi. But anyway, Pi is frightened because he knows about the animals and how dangerous they are. So he constructs a small raft out of the rescue flotation devices, that is whatever is floating around him, and he makes it into boat, and he makes that as his place of retirement. And from that place itself, he conditions Richard Parker to take a submissive role by using food as a reinforcer. That is, he will give food as so he'll catch the fish and he'll give it to it. And also he gives seasickness as a punishment mechanism and uses whistles for signal. Soon Pi becomes the alpha animal, that is, he becomes a leader and is eventually able to share the boat with his feline companion, that is Richard Parker, and finally admits that Richard Parker is the one who helped him to survive his ordeal. And Pi recounts various events while adrift in the Pacific Ocean. When he was at his lowest point, this exposure in that boat has made him blind, and now he is unable to catch the fish. And during this period, another drifting boat with another castaway abroad comes there, and they try to connect their boats together, but the other castaway tries to murder Pi, but Richard Parker kills the castaway and it eats him. After this, Pi gradually recovers from his temporary blindness, and sometime later Pi's boat comes ashore on a floating island network of algae, which is inhabited by thousands of meerkats. And soon Pi and Richard Parker regain strength. But Pi finds out that the plants which are in that island are carnivorous in nature. That is, they are flesh eaters, and therefore he forces himself to return to the ocean in order to save his life, and also Richard Parker follows him. And 227 days after the ship sinking, the lifeboat washes onto a beach in Mexico. And the moment they reach the beach, Richard Parker disappears into the nearby jungle without even looking back at Pi, and this leaves Pi heartbroken because Richard Parker has abruptly departed without even saying a farewell to him. And in part 3, we find two officials from the Japanese Ministry of Transport are inquiring into the shipwreck. They come and meet him at the hospital in Mexico because he is admitted there for recovery, and Pi tells them his tale. But the officials reject it, saying that they could not believe what he is saying. Therefore, Pi tells them another story in which he is again, the same thing happens, the ship wrecks and he is adrift in the lifeboat. But now he is not with the zoo animals, but he is with the Taiwanese sailor who has broken his leg, the ship's cook, and his own mother. The cook amputates the sailor's leg for using as a fishing bait, and the sailor dies soon. And suddenly the mother catches the cook eating the sailor's flesh. And Pi and his mother are disgusted by the cook, but they have no other option, so they cooperate with him to survive. However, after Pi fails to catch a turtle, the cook hits him, and this causes the mother to get angry, and she tries to go and hit the cook in retaliation. And this leads to a violent fight, and the cook kills Pi's mother. And soon after, the cook is killed by Pi, and Pi eats him. And the investigators now they compare both the stories, and they come to a conclusion that both the stories are same. Only thing is, the hyena symbolizes the cook, the zebra the sailor, and orangutan Pi's mother, and the tiger is none other than Pi himself. And Pi points out that neither story can be proven, and it cannot be explained to tell the cause of the shipwreck. So he asks the officials to choose whichever story they prefer to report, the one without the animals or one with the animals. The officials consult each other and they finally choose a story with the animals, and Pi thanks them and says, and so it goes with God. And the investigators then leave and file a report expressing belief in the first story, and here ends the story. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box, like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.